Thanks so much for bringing the car in.
Of course.
I say a car, it is a car. It looks a bit like a spaceship. I don't really know where to even begin with it, to be honest with you. So I think what we'll do is we'll start with, because you guys are Oilstainlab. So what do you guys do?
Yeah, I mean, originally started as, well, I mean, first of all, we're based in LA.
Yeah.
So we're on the other side of the Atlantic right
Yeah.
now. Little out of our comfort zone. But yeah, I mean, Oilstainlab started as a design consultancy for kind of automotive stuff. We're both, my brother and I run it. Yeah, car stuff. We love cars, car designers, professional OEM basically, and then wanted to get out of the corporate world. So started building things.
Okay. Okay, so you're not just a designer, you guys are also mechanics, you guys are also builders.
Well, very flattering, but no.
Okay, no, it's a question.
Yeah, so when we started this project, we didn't know how to metal shape, weld, cut, fabricate,
Right,
or
okay.
anything. So
Okay.
very first thing that we built was the rear wing.
Okay.
A nice old gentleman, Charlie, helped us.
So hang on a second, I'm just going to interject. So you just stated all the things you can't do,
Yeah.
which are all the things that this car requires.
Exactly.
And as a first project, you guys decided to do this.
Yes.
Right. So was there any moment where you guys thought, maybe let's go for something a little bit simpler?
There was, yeah, very many moments of deep regret.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, right, okay. So before we go into a little bit more detail about the car, so people come to your shop, to Oilstainlab, for design consultancy and also to have cars built now, is that right?
No, well, so yeah, people still do come to us as a design consultancy.
Okay.
We're kind of cutting that side of the business off,
Yeah.
actually. But we do build occasionally, but we're much less hands-on with customer builds, I
Okay.
would say that. This is the one that was blood, sweat, and tears. The other cars, you know, we built a few Safaris for some clients, but
Sure.
normally we'll get, yeah, professional like suspension guy to come in and help
Okay, sure.
us basically.
Okay.
So, yeah.
But you're effectively a custom shop for custom projects, very bespoke projects.
Correct, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's really cool. And with your design background, I'm guessing that's where it all starts. It starts with the design.
Yeah, it usually starts with a sketch or a big idea. So we call it the 300-foot view. So like if you back away from a car 100 yards, is it iconic? Does it stand out? What can we change to make it, look different from that distance? And then we start zooming in once we've narrowed that down.
Right. So, okay, you've just hit on a word there that has a lot of connotations.
Okay.
Iconic. So how do you design something that's iconic?
Yeah,
I've asked you $1 million question there, haven't I?
Exactly. It's like designing a beautiful car. It just
Yeah.
kind of happens, right?
Does it? It doesn't just kind of happen. If it just kind of happened, you're dulling it down, then I'd do it. And I certainly don't have the talent for it. So it doesn't just happen.
There's
You're
a
being
little
very
luck,
modest
I
there.
think.
Yeah.
No, I mean, for us, I think iconic is a function of, it's design basically, but it's function, it's purpose, and then it's that 300-foot view. And it's something maybe somebody hasn't thought of or hasn't sort of done yet. And oftentimes it's tied to like architecture, right? Like if you look at really iconic cars, obviously the 911, it's a very unique layout, right? Engine in the back, transmission, everything. So if you look at the other iconic cars, whether it's the Volkswagen Microbus or the Beetle or the Ford Mustang, it's like, it's the first car that's that new layout. So we try and figure out if we can change the proportions of the car through that big architecture. That generally will lead you towards iconic, hopefully.
Okay. So where did the idea come from? Do you have a background in Porsches? Is there an intrinsic love for them?
Not a deep love, actually. Kind of a deep hatred when I was a kid. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely a Lambo Countach kid growing up.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And then always just thought, 911 is just a fast Beetle. Like.
So your poster on the wall was the Countach. It wasn't the 930. So how do we go from a kid who has a Countach on the wall to a grown man who's built a half 11?
Yes. Well, I think, so when my brother and I, my twin brother, we turned 25, we wanted to buy a cool car. And so, we were looking at Lamborghini Espadas and stuff like that. In the end, decided like, hey, we're not we haven't quite made it in life yet to justify the maintenance and all that. So we ended up, falling in love with kind of 911 hot rod culture, Group R. And
Okay.
it's like, it's some, in California, you can kind of customize those cars and be okay, right? You can't really do that with Ferrari or Lambo or anything. So started.
Why do you think that is?
Why?
Why can Porsches be customized and not those other cars?
Well, I think at the time, honestly, they were very affordable. If you talk about 2010, 2011, and so, you could put personality on something that maybe doesn't cost $500,000, right? Or it belongs in a museum, according to the purists. So, I think it's kind of sad that the values are higher now, and I think people are less prone to like cutting them up and making an RSR or something, right? They just kind of keep the S stock, because it's worth the most. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's a theory.
So there was an interest in 911s and the hot rodding culture that you had already.
Yeah, exactly. And so the first car we ended up buying was a 72 RS Tribute built in the 80s with real RS flares and stuff. So I'll tell you how little we knew about 911s. Had no idea what a short hood or a long hood was when we bought the car.
So how long ago was this?
2011,
Okay.
12.
Yeah.
So, and then, just started deep diving, figuring out what a short hood is, what a long hood is. Then found out 72 is actually a pretty iconic year. So completely just got lucky on so many facets.
Sure.
And then that sort of started the addiction. And it was a 911 every 6 months after that.
Was it? Okay. So when it came to doing your first big project, it had to be 911 inspired.
Yeah, so before this, we did do a fiberglass bodied RSR. So not a lot of wrenching on it, but just bolted
So
at
like a
that.
73, 74? Or?
It was a 74 tub, but then we converted it to a long hood.
Okay.
So it was 74 fenders, but long hood sort of styling, let's say.
Okay, so that's a nice, relatively easy build, is that right?
Yeah. It's more or less bolt on, some body work.
Yeah. And away you go.
Yeah.
In inverted commas.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But the dream was always 1960s Le Mans prototype.
Okay.
917. How do you get a car that's just dangerous and like emotional and like the passion of that? And so
Dangerous.
dangerous is a key word. Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Why is it a key word?
I think there's something very alluring about knowing that if you screw up, there's consequences, and no one's going to stop you from screwing up. It's on you, right? It's personal responsibility, and I think that's why those drivers are the heroes that they are, because if they screwed up, bad stuff would happen.
The consequences would die.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
You're jumping into the ring with the bull.
Yeah, dicing with the limit. No, I get it. Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's true that when they go, they go. Yeah, when they let go, they let go. Okay, good. So 1960s Le Mans prototype kind of car was the idea.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, and so let's start going through the car. So let's start with the name, shall we? Why is it called Half 11?
So it's called the Half 11 because, we're obsessed with the 917, but we were 911 boys at that time.
Yeah.
And we managed to get a 911 tub from a race shop really cheap. It sat around for a year in our backyard. We're like, what are we going to do? We've already built the widest. We've already built the narrow ones. So what are we going to do? And then my brother did a sketch, and it was half of a 911 plus half of the Interscope Porsche car.
Yeah.
Kind of like Photoshop. And we're like, all right, that's it. Let's
So
do
which
that.
Interscope car?
The white one.
The white one.
Yeah, the Indy car, the white Indy 500.
Which one would that? Okay, yeah.
Was that like 70, late 70s, early 80s?
Yeah, it would have been around that time.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was what we decided on. And then at the same time, we were kind of starting Oilstainlab and developing the business. And we're like, okay, well, let's make this part of the business and kind of the business card. And part of that is storytelling. And so how do you tell a new car story? Like we've seen all the reality shows. It's like, oh, we only have 3 days to finish this. Are we going to make it? There's builds that have been documented in very unique ways, but we thought we could do something even more different and kind of bring in LA, Hollywood, storytelling. And so we created an alternate history for this car.
Okay.
And said, okay, what if the 911, like the GT40, raced in two different classes, sports car and prototype? Yeah. Obviously, Porsche had the 908 and the 917 in prototype. What if they raced 911 in sports car versus GT40? And so this was the brief for that.
Okay, okay. So would I be right in saying that this is half GT40 inspired, half 911 inspired?
Yeah, sort of Can-Am, American inspired. Yeah, exactly.
Love it.
Yeah.
What an interesting and cool concept. And the thing is it's a controversial concept, obviously, as well, for the obvious reason that, you know, what's it called? It's a half 11.
Right.
So what were your thoughts on that one, and what has the feedback been since?
Well, I think, you know, for us, it wasn't that controversial, and it made us sleep okay, because originally we really wanted to do a 917 replica.
Yeah.
But like, where are you going to get a flat 12? So anything that isn't a flat 12 in 917 is just wrong, in my opinion. So for us, this let us sleep at night. It's like, no one cares. It's our own thing.
Yeah.
I think originally there was a lot of, you know, hate on the motor. And sort of the approach, which was very raw, because we showed everybody everything, and like I said, we had no idea what we were doing. But I think after hearing this thing up at Goodwood, a lot of people came over and were like, okay, I get why it's not a flat 6. Like, I get why you put the V8 in there.
From my perspective, I've always had this philosophy that your car, your rules.
Right.
And you're not here to live anybody else's life except your own. So fundamentally, if it puts a grin on your face, then you're winning or whatever it is that you're doing.
Right.
And I can't not look at something like this and just think, wow, you know, awesome. It's inspired, is what it is. And anybody that doesn't appreciate something that's inspired, it's their loss, I guess, maybe.
Right. Well, the internet would be a boring place if we just let everyone.
Well, you know, the internet meals everyone. Yeah, anyway. Cool. Okay, so are there any, I mean, bodywork-wise, this is all brand new, fabricated by yourselves. There's nothing, there isn't the basis of, is there an original wing in here or front or something? It's all,
Yeah, it's all hand-formed aluminum. So we originally got steel fenders and hood to use as a buck.
Yeah.
And then kind of formed around that.
Right.
But yeah, no, this is all hand-formed. The entire body weighs like 35 pounds. It's super lightweight. And it's all one big piece, all the way from the front bumper to the rear fenders.
And tell me, is it rough by design or is it rough by skill set?
I would say rough by skill set and by the amount of time that we spent on it. You know, this is not obviously our profession or our full-time job. So,
but I love the fact that it's rough like this. It's got that kind of punk rock attitude of like, this is what we're trying to achieve. It's a steering wheel with pedals. It's going down the road. It looks a certain way because it performs a certain way. It certainly looks like that to me. So from my perspective, I think it's really cool that it's kind of purposeful over aesthetics.
Yeah, I mean, we certainly don't want to hide it, and we're not shy about it, you know. We've certainly embraced it, and, you know, we did a trip from LA to New York, hit a semi-truck tire on the freeway, and it bent the entire nose this way. The cool thing with aluminum is you can just grab it and just, you know, yank it back, and so it's lived, you know, 10,000 miles on the road and the track. So it's got the scars and the, you know, the patina, let's say.
So you've got a tubular chassis underneath here. Yeah.
So the 911 tub runs. Well, we ended up removing all this. So from about the dashboard forward. And
right, wow, so there is a 911 tub underneath there.
Yeah.
Interesting.
911.
So what was the thought of keeping that?
Well, we had the name before the project, half 11. So
I know, but okay.
It's a third 11 maybe now, but it's not quite as catchy.
So the name comes out of what you had in the workshop, which was half 11. It's not just a philosophical, it's not just a name based on the aesthetics of the look of the thing. Right, wow, fantastic. Okay, awesome. So the front clip is 911 to about here.
Yes.
Okay, and then?
And then from here back, it's basically, tubular, space frame.
Right, wow. So how do you register something like this on the road? I mean, in England, I can't imagine you'd ever get this registered in the UK
I mean, it's got some VINs, you know, the existing VINs and stuff, so, you know.
So does that mean it's they're quite relaxed in California?
In California, generally, if it's 75 and older, you're kind of okay. You know?
That's cool.
You know.
Awesome. Yeah, I dread to think what the MOT system would think of
I
this.
can imagine, yeah.
In the UK, we certainly love our bureaucracy
can
over here
imagine.
and our health and safety. So yeah, awesome. That's super cool. Okay, so we've got aluminium. And why aluminium? Why not steel? Because presumably steel is easier to work with, right? Aluminium is...
Yeah, so originally the thought was, okay, maybe we do fiberglass,
Yeah.
you know, because that was a very period correct,
Yeah.
but just hate working with fiberglass.
Yeah. Why?
After the RSR that we did
Yeah,
and
yeah.
body working that. So we ditched that idea pretty quickly.
Okay.
And, you know, the early Porsche cars were aluminum. So thought, okay, this would be a neat skill to learn. And also then you can leave it exposed, right? With steel, you'd have to paint it.
Yeah.
And, you know, this is nice because we're constantly tweaking, adjusting, bending, refining. So, aluminum
Nice.
was the choice.
Really cool. Yeah, I love how you've left it bare. And so actually, I'm just noticing now as I'm looking a little bit closer, this isn't paint. This is the livery is decals, isn't it?
Yeah, so every event we go to, we try and throw a different livery on it. For Goodwood, we really wanted to pop against like the green. So yeah, a lot of orange and white.
Yeah, very cool. Awesome. And so talk me through a bit, like what's called, is there any reason for the brands, or are they just brands that look cool and work for the occasion?
You mean the gold, yeah?
Yeah, like the Mobile One, and we've got, what else have we got?
Peaches, yeah.
Peaches, yeah, what's the story behind Peaches?
So it's a little bit of a happy mistake. We actually didn't want to do that. And then Mobile One was helping sponsor us.
Yeah.
And so they're celebrating their 50th anniversary. So like, we need more gold.
Okay.
And my brother then started putting more gold on it, and we actually really like the how it kind of aged it, made it a little bit more vintage, and then matches in with some of the, you know, the shocks and some of the browns on the exhaust. So yeah, that was actually a really cool thing.
Awesome. Okay, let's delve a little bit deeper into the mechanics. So let's start at the front. So we've got like a 911 light here. That's pretty much stock.
Yeah, exactly. So
in terms of the diameter.
Yeah, exactly.
The
so
shape?
we kept this the same, but these are 3D printed plastic, and we got really creative. We were thinking these would be brake vents and stuff. It was a terrible idea that never really worked out, but it stayed with the car.
Cool. Okay, nice. And then you've got some serious cutaways here coming through. The wings, the bodywork doesn't follow all the way around. The cover, this area, you've left that quite exposed.
Yeah, so I mean, for us, it was really important to sort of pay homage to the fact that they had no idea what Aero was.
Yeah.
Like zero clue.
Yeah.
And so we loved the idea. BMW Alpine on the 2002s, they had these cut fenders. Some of the Porsche cars as well, they had kind of the bumper and then they widened the flares. So we thought, oh, that looks really cool, looks period. Let's do that. And it gave the car kind of its unique
character.
Yeah, so it's effectively a 911 with bigger fenders grafted onto it, right? And you can kind of still see where the 911 would have been.
I know it's interesting because normally these kind of cutaways, you see them on the exits on the way out. But yeah, and then you've got a carbon fiber splitter there, right?
Yeah, originally we were going to metal shape it.
Okay.
And then it was just beyond our skill set. So we're like, okay, let's just do a carbon one.
Super.
And thankfully, because this thing takes a beating everywhere we go.
Yeah. Okay. And so here are these air ducts coming through?
Correct. Yeah. So we haven't finished them, but in theory, those would be hoses to the brakes. But we actually don't see the car's so lightweight. Every time we're on track, we don't really see crazy brake temp, so we don't really need to run cooling. And then obviously radiator in the middle.
Okay, so you've got your radiator there, and then you've got a relief for it here. So you've got one radiator, two fans.
Yep, exactly. And then we've got two separate firewalls, because first time we ran it, we were about to go LA to New York, and 4 days before we ran this shroud the first time with the roof, and it got so hot inside, we were like, oh my God, we're just going to bake for 3,100 miles.
Right, yeah.
So quickly pulled everything apart and fabricated two firewalls to keep the hot air out.
It's a lovely detail. I really like that. Looks really cool. Yeah, and the orange as well. It's quite fun with the brake ducts in the same color. Almost looks like that's where the F. It highlights it really nicely. The shape there.
Yeah, it
Really
comes
cool.
from like the aeronautics. You know, sometimes they put the underneath of aero surfaces like a different color, so we kind of borrowed that.
So we touched on it briefly, and actually I forgot to ask you just a moment ago, but aerodynamically, what's the car like?
So we did actually have it evaluated because we have a digital model of this, and it wasn't terrible, it wasn't great, it was kind of just like neutral. Like the rear wing works, but it's way too low for optimum. You know, it needs to go up a foot and a half. This chin spoiler underneath it is actually a modern GT3R profile.
Okay.
So it does create a little bit of suction, and obviously blocks air from going underneath the car, which helps. It's got a full flat floor, so that helps, but it's draggy because the tires are exposed. But
And were you ever tempted to design it aerodynamically, or did you really want to design it?
I mean, we weren't going to Le Mans to compete,
Yeah, sure.
so yeah, we had no incentive to,
Sure, okay. And here I see you've got a fuel safe system. Yeah, okay, cool. And then this whole section here comes apart, does it?
Correct, yeah, so we can pull the entire roof off and then run it as a speedster, which again was something they did in the 60s.
So it comes all the way around to about here?
Correct, yeah.
And what's it like running as a speedster? It must be quite intense.
Yeah, so...
I mean, it must be intense anyway, but...
Yeah. We rented out a track, Big Willow in California, and did a 2-day test. And we had Rick Knoop, this old school racer. He's raced like Can-Am cars and stuff.
Okay, so a brave man.
And we had, he's tall, so he wouldn't fit with the roof, so we pulled the roof off. And after 3 laps, he came in, he's like, dude, I can't drive this. We need something.
So even with a helmet?
At 100, well, the problem is like Big Willow, you hit about 155, 160 going down the front straight.
Yeah.
It just wants to rip your helmet off, like pulls. And then once you start looking into turn 1, the wind hits the side and just like snaps your neck.
Right, wow. Okay.
So we ended up fabricating a shroud here out of just sheet metal we found in the desert. Just riveted it in, again, because aluminum, you can kind of do those things.
The sheet metal you found in the desert, that was just in place on the day while all this going on?
Yeah, just to help him, get some windbreak.
Amazing, yeah. I mean, why not? Why wouldn't you go and find a piece of scrap metal in the middle of the desert?
Well, that's what they would have done in the 60s.
Well, yeah, sure. Awesome. Okay, right. Let's move slowly towards the back. So here we've got a nice big flare, and we've also got an air intake.
Yes, exactly. So this was thinking basically into the rear brake area. But again, after testing it, we never took it any further because we just didn't need it.
Sure. And you've got a nice little aesthetic detail here for where a window would potentially be, I guess?
Yeah, so that gives us the iconic 911 sort of shape. So we tried to, pay homage to that.
Yeah.
And it gives you access to the oil on one side and water on the other.
I see, yeah. And what's on the other? Oil and what?
Yeah.
Okay. I love the cutaway on the doors. How it really comes into the roofline. That's very GT40-esque, isn't it?
Yeah. And we needed to do that because they're just on the roof section, so it's a very small door.
Yeah. True. Yeah. So a lot of hopping around. Before we start going on the inside, let's talk a little bit more about let's go on to the engine, I guess.
Of course.
So just quickly, actually, before we get to that, I've just seen the suspension turrets here. And the suspension turrets are the same as they are on a standard 911?
So heavily modified.
Yeah.
The spindles have been raised 110 millimeters.
Okay.
Because our tire offset is so wide, we're able to basically have it's terrible for geometry, but the actual strut is inside of the tire contact patch.
Right, wow.
And so because of that, we can raise the spindles that much.
And I'm guessing you've got all custom control arms at the front for this all to work.
A tubular 935 style. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And what calipers are you running?
So the car all around has Willwood sort of a 930 spec.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be the closest thing.
Okay. Right, let's talk about this controversial, inverted commas, engine. So tell me, what have we got? What am I looking at here?
Yeah, so initially we looked at a bunch of engines. We looked at, I wanted to do maybe a new Cayenne V8, 928 motor.
Oh yeah, that would have made sense. Yeah.
It would have until we saw the packaging requirements for the 928, which is the block is basically bigger than all of this with its accessories.
Really? Right, wow.
And the weight.
Yeah.
And so we wanted this really compact rear end. And yeah, basically the LS was the winner. So it started life as an LS 3 block, and then there's nothing really left. Super big bore, really short stroke, works out to about 5.5 liters. So it went down in displacement.
Yeah, yeah.
And the goal was basically to, yeah.
And what year is the engine?
The block, I mean, I have no idea what year the block would be, yeah. I don't know, just LS something, one.
And did you build the engine for it, or like, have you spec'd it, or is it a crate engine? Or?
No, so yeah, so it's not a crate engine, it's fully built just for us based on our requirements. So we told them, we don't really care about power, we don't really care about torque, we just want 9,000 RPM. So that's kind of how it was built.
The brief on this car is impressive, I've got to say, you know. Yeah, from do the aero how it was in the period, we just want 9,000 RPM. Yeah, there's definitely some reverse engineering that could be done on this car. Yeah.
I think we were after like an experience.
Yeah.
You know, more so than like numbers or really performance. And I mean, it does perform well, but that wasn't really what we wanted to do. It was more of like, I want that period experience.
That totally makes sense. Okay, yeah, the experience. Okay, yeah, that's coming together under that title. Yeah. So what is the experience? What is the experience that you're looking for?
Yeah, I mean, for us, we weren't lucky enough to experience the 60s or the 70s, right? And I honestly haven't really driven any Can-Am cars or those prototypes. So part of the reason we got Rick Nuke to do that 2-day test with us was he's driven all those cars. He raced in period. He's been on fire. He's crashed cars at Le Mans. And, you know, does it feel like that? And so, yeah, after the first hour, he came back and said, like, you guys nailed it. So we were like, yes.
And what did you nail? Like, what is the experience of driving the car? What does it feel like?
Well,
for those of us who aren't going to be so lucky as to run this up good with.
Yeah, so I mean, when he came back, he said basically the power of a Can-Am car with the turn-in of a Formula car, the braking. So that was very cool. But what does that mean as the experience? Extremely analog, extremely heavy.
Yeah. So heavy controls, pedals, all the rest of it.
Pedals, steering.
So proper workout, sweat territory, yeah?
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah, we joke, like even the gas pedal's pretty stiff, and we joke that that's primitive traction control. Like, are you sure you want that?
I love the attitude, I do. People overthink things maybe a bit too much, and I like the attitude of, let's just go for the experience. This is really what we're about.
Right.
Interesting. Yeah, really cool. Okay.
But I think the closest like driving experience is like if you've been fortunate enough to drive like a shifter cart. It's that, but just bigger and obviously heavier. But it slides like that, it moves like that. It's got the same sort of ferocity. Yeah.
So it's got to be a hell of an onslaught on the sensors, really. You come out of this thing, probably haven't worked out.
It's fun.
Yeah. You know, I'm lucky to see a lot of awesome cars come through here for this series we do for Niners Unplugged. Right. And very often there are some awesome cars I'd love to experience to drive. And I've got to say, this has got to be way up there. When you start talking to me about, you know, it all being about the experience, about it being tough and difficult and sweat worthy and all the rest of it, that's right up my kind of street. Right. Yeah, really, really cool. Love it. Okay. So I have to ask, has it made 9,000 RPM then?
So it did on the dyno, and then we limit it basically to 7,500 for longevity.
Yeah, sure.
On the dyno, they ran it up there. Honestly, it stops making power after about 82. Okay. But yeah, and this thing sounds at 75 because of the exhaust system. It sounds like it's doing 9, 10, whatever. Nice.
And so I have to ask, what kind of horsepower and torque are you putting out with this thing?
Yeah, so they ended up pretty even, the numbers. 650 horsepower, 650 pound-feet of torque.
In a car that weighs, let me guess, 700 kilos?
830 kilos fully wet.
130 kilos fully wet. Yeah. That is a hell of a power to weight ratio.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, that is phenomenal. Awesome. Yeah, that must be a hell of an experience. Okay, and we've got some serious spaghetti going on here. Talk me through the exhaust system.
Yeah, so again, my brother and I, we love the period correctness of it. We love sand cast headers. Couldn't find anyone in the US that does that. So
Explain to me what a sand cast header
So
is.
back in the day, in F1 and stuff, they had these beautiful organic shapes. And they would basically pack them full of sand, heat them up, and bend them into shape so the tube doesn't collapse. No one really does that anymore. Now it's mandrel bending, where they put in the CNC and it just bends. And it looks geometric, it looks stiff because it's corner, straight, corner, straight. We weren't going to do that. So the solution was 3D print the entire thing at Inconel.
Yeah. Oh, that's what you've done?
Yes.
Christ.
So it's a 1 millimeter wall thickness, equal length headers within 1%, and then we've matched the spiral coming into each merge collector, and all of that adds up to a really, interesting sort of iconic sound. Like you would never guess the motor or the setup.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Okay, gearbox. What are we doing? What are we running?
So this gearbox is a 996 GT2 box that's been flipped upside down for the mid-engine.
996 GT2 box has been flipped upside down.
Yeah, so
okay. So there is some Porsche on the back end as well.
There is, yeah.
I mean, don't tell anyone because otherwise you might calm them down a bit. But,
Yes.
yeah. Okay. Cool.
And it's the part that's giving us a headache right now.
Is it?
Yeah, it's leaking.
Is it?
Yes.
Well, yeah. Cool. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And so with the tubular chassis design.
Yeah.
Is that all your own work? Had you done that before, or how did you know where to go and how to do it?
Yeah, so when we started the project, my brother and I, we basically touched every single facet and then hired a professional to get involved at every point. So part of the very start was, figuring out the proportions, where do we need tubes, how do we want to do it? So I ended up building about 35 variations of tube frames or space frames in the computer.
Right.
Then running FEA analysis on it myself.
FEA analysis?
Basically stress tests, digital stress tests.
Okay.
Figuring out what works, what doesn't. Then we went to a really good friend of ours, Joe Scarbo, who we did like Huna Pegasus with and stuff like that. So he's a proper engineer, motorsports engineer, knows what he's doing. He looked at it, laughed at my studies, basically took what I had and kind of obviously made it better, made it real, made it safe. And then we argued about, how it looks back and forth, designer, engineer, and settled on this eventually. So yeah, it was a combination of kind of my initial input idea and then someone actually making sure that it's safe. Cool.
Okay, and then we're soon going to go on the inside, but I see we're running Öhlins here. And the wheels are 917 inspired, really, aren't they?
Correct, yeah. So the Öhlins are from an Indy car. They're TTX 40s. Okay. They actually have a little circle cutout for the drive shafts that they run on Indy cars under here. And then, period correct sort of suspension geometry, similar to what they would have done like on, GT40. It's a little bit, interesting because there's only one upper control arm. So that's a little worrisome.
Yeah.
And then as for the wheels, they're one-off custom design made for us by our good friends at basically Rotiform.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
cool.
Again, we love the 917 wheel, but this is a sort of our take on it, fix a few little things that that bothered us.
Tell me, what bothered you? What did you fix?
Well, I think a lot of the modern ones, because they use modern tools and stuff, the radiuses are off. And then a lot of these intersections, you get a little bit strange shapes, and then the barrel section as well. So, little details that if you look closely, it would kind of make sense, but most people will never notice.
Awesome. Super cool. Right, let's have a quick look inside.
Sure. There's a little kickstand.
It's a little kickstand.
Right up on this upper section. You pull that out, and then find the drilled hole.
Oh yeah, I see it here. There are two. The upper one.
Whichever
one
to you.
works. Okay, cool. Yeah. So this is good incentive to make sure that you keep a good diet, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Sliding in.
Reach in and get the steering wheel into position.
Yeah. Awesome. Now, usually this is the point where I say, do you mind if I take a seat?
Yeah.
But today I'm not going to. And my excuse is that my back isn't great. So, but yeah, and also the other thing is if I get in, I won't want to get out.
Right.
So then you'll have a whole other kind of problem on your hands. Okay, cool. So we've got some little bucket seats, and no headrests, and a tiny little perspace.
Yes.
Yeah, the induction noise you must get coming through must be pretty impressive as well.
Yeah, I mean it's very loud in here. Obviously, you get a little bit of heat from the firewall, but it was very pleasant this morning because it's quite chilly out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so you guys drove the car here?
Yeah. 2.5 hours.
Jesus. So you guys drove the car here. It wasn't trailered.
No. No.
Now, okay, I'm going to go on a slight tangent.
Okay.
You're a California-based business.
Yes.
You're a California guy.
Yeah.
What brings you to the UK? What are you doing over here?
Well, we got invited to Goodwood to run up the hill.
Fantastic.
And so, I mean, to me, that's the pinnacle of, especially for this car and this project. When we started, we made like fake images of it at Goodwood or at Le Mans. And so to be invited and then get the chance and then on pre-grid to be surrounded by like Sauber C9s, McLaren F1s, 250 GTOs, it's just like mind-blowing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So you had the car shipped over, and we talked about a little bit about this off camera, but you've been doing what's the word I'm looking for? You've been doing quite a tour of the UK. So have you been driving it to every destination you've been to?
We have, yeah. And
so where have you been so far?
Mostly around Goodwood so far.
Yeah.
This has been the longest drive up here, but now it's going to head down to Dunsfold and then back into London.
Yeah.
So that'll be kind of the end of the trip. We'll be London on the weekend.
Yeah. So driving this car at the best of times is going to be quite a challenge. But on top of that, doing it on the correct side of the road,
yes,
must be interesting for yourself, no?
It's strangely less weird than having to shift with my left hand in the rental car.
Yeah.
That's really bizarre for me.
I guess here, at least you're at home.
Yeah, like this is my
It's a
safe
home away
space.
from home.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
So as long as I follow the car in front of me, I'm okay.
Yeah. Fantastic. Okay, cool. So we've got 3 pedals as steering wheel, which is definitely my kind of car. And what else? Got a fire extinguisher. I like your little 917 knob there. Yeah. What else am I missing here? I mean, the big standout feature is obviously the dash binnacle there.
Yes. Yes, exactly. So unfortunately, we haven't gotten these to work yet. We're working on it. But so they're really just for show. But we wanted you to feel like you're in a 911, but again, in a very sort of exotic way. So cut the entire dashboard structure, try to create one that sort of, honors it, kind of has a similar design, and then add this sort of floating binnacle on top, which, really highlights probably the most iconic sort of interior feature of a 911.
Awesome. Super cool. And is that a Momo steering wheel?
This is from a Porsche Cup, yes. So I think it's sawbelt, whatever they're using now in the modern cars.
Cool.
And yeah, we got a lot of dirt from Goodwood in it.
I love the way the shifter it comes out as a pod, just there, and you've got a nice bit of, for want of a better word, scaffolding holding in the seat together.
Yes,
there. That looks great. Very cool. Okay, so how many times have you been stopped over here?
So far, 0.
0?
Yeah.
Amazing. And so, how do you even, because the car's not running any number plate. Oh, it is running a number plate?
Yep.
Okay. And I'm guessing you've got your paperwork and so on in case, someone does stop you.
Yep.
Right. Wow. Well, what an incredible car. And I'm honored that you've taken the 2 hours in this thing to come and see me. Yeah, no, it's a stunning piece of kit. It really, really is. And there's so much detail here. You could really spend hours just poring over it. And a real credit to you, it's no mean feat to be invited to Goodwood, and that certainly is a testament to how cool, how rad, and how much the car has captured people's imaginations. I suppose my next question is, what's the next step with it? What are you planning next?
Geez, yeah, I mean, we thought we'd done it all when we drove it from LA to New York. Then we did ice race with this thing. And then to do Goodwood, I think, we've always talked about like, when does it feel done? It's like, it'll never really be done, but I feel like after Goodwood, like, it's done. So, yeah, I mean, we're working on basically a new, let's call it the production version of this, but imagine this car 50 years of progress. Okay. Like if we were to build this car today using the best in tech, engines, aero, everything, what could we do? So that's kind of the brief for the next one, and sort of, the one that we'll probably end up selling to people. Nice,
awesome. Well, dude, I wish you all the very best, and I hope the rest of your tour is successful. And it's been an absolute pleasure, and thank you for getting in touch and bringing the car over. So, yeah, thanks.
Of course, awesome, man. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thanks for having us.